Good evening, our dear fellow viewers, followers, fellow Zambians, fellow citizens. We are back again, but this episode is the last episode in our live discussions on access to information, and we hope that all the episodes have been so helpful. Please share this broadcast so that we may have as many people receiving the necessary information. And also, please feel free to drop your comment. Today, we want to share as much as we can in terms of how we want to relate access to information and the Ministry of Agriculture or farming and how best information can help our farmers. So please share this broadcast. In the next few minutes, we should be starting. Experts should be joining us. I mentioned that this is the last episode for our live discussions and access to information. All right, I think we can start our conversation. We should be waiting for about 2 3 guests, then we should be starting. So please share the broadcast so that we can have more people joining us. I mentioned this evening's discussion is the last, and the discussions relating to access to information. Remember that this broadcast is brought to you by the Ask ATI Initiative under the USAID Open Spaces Zambia project. Now, the USAID Open Spaces Zambia project is funded by USAID and implemented by Internews in partnership with FHI 360. Now, I mentioned that we will be looking at the relationship between or how best can our farmers benefit from the access to information. If you want to participate, you are free to get into our comment section and please feel free to drop your comments or contributions with relations to access to information. Now, just to sort of recap from one episode up to where we are today, on these live discussions, we've always made it very clear that access to information is critical in achieving different development. And we want to sum up, we've always concluded development in line with the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, what we've established under these live discussions is that through access to information, the public is empowered to make informed choices, effectively monitor and hold their government to account, and be able to know about decisions affecting their lives. So this is the general overview about this live discussion, and also we've also clarified that look, this access to information does not only seek to empower the media, but generally every Zambian, generally every sector, generally every um, aspect of the country. So you and I are also key beneficiaries of the access to information. We should be waiting. We should be joined by Mr. Runik Mapanza, who is the chairperson of the Livingstone Farmers Cooperative Union. He wants to share with us in terms of how um, farmers can benefit from access to information. If you have any contribution, please, you are free to get into our comments section and drop your comments and or questions so that we may consider them. It seems Mr. Mapanza is having connectivity problems, but he should be joining us soon as he settles his connectivity issues. But like I indicated, please, you're free to come through and share with us your experience with access to information, and also how best you think farmers can be potentially be key beneficiaries of the access to information. But just to also put everyone on the know, we know that the current stage of the access to information is that 2 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago to be precise, while we did notice, cabinet granting initial approval for the introduction of the access to information bill in Parliament, and so obviously that making a significant step towards promoting transparency, accountability, and obviously curbing corruption, like we have been indicating on this platform. But just to delve into it in terms of how farmers can benefit from the access to information, I mentioned that the access to information is not only for those that are in the media fraternity, civil society organizations, but generally it's for all Zambians, including lay Zambians like you and I. Now, you will realize that farmers are, very, very important people in terms of the country's food security. But then to effectively ensure that the country is food secure, we have different policies of government that ensure that they, as much as possible, empower smallholder farmers. For example, the Farmer Input Support Program, which is FISIP, although it's going to be replaced very soon by another system that the government has noted to be more effective than the usual FISIP. Now you realize that this particular policy, which is the Farmer Input Support Program, has been for a long time now, for many years, being implemented with limited or lack of information amongst the farmers. For example, the delivery of these very inputs, there hasn't been accurate information in terms of when farmers will receive their produce, their inputs rather. So eventually, this has been a problem in terms of the output, which is the quantity or the harvest for the farmers. So you realize that access to information is needed not only to these other people that are these sectors that I've mentioned, but also to key sectors like agriculture, farming, because if farmers are not given information on time in terms of they're not informed to say, okay, by next month, this week, we'll be able to send the input. The challenge also with how this information has been shared, for example, in terms of FISIP, you realize that FISIP is intended to benefit the smallholder farmers, like I said. So the smallholder farmers, most of them, I'll use my grandmother in the village in Chief Mukuni's area. Most of them are not so learned like my grandmother. So they are able to relate well to information that comes to them in the local language. So you realize that these agricultural extension officers that are in these different, I'm not saying everyone, but there is just lack of simplicity in terms of information. So realize that once we have access to information, obviously the packaging of the information also would then be on point, because what's the point of taking information that is not well so packaged? It means people will miss information. So these are some of the areas in which farming or farmers in general can also benefit in terms of access to information. And so I'll give an example, just a very practical example. You may be aware, if you're in Zambia, that at the moment there has been low temperatures for since June somewhere there. If you're in Southern Province, you attest to that. I'm not very sure of the temperature in terms of how they are rating in Osaka. But Livingston at the moment is having to as low as 5 degrees Celsius temperatures. Of course, we know that starting from yesterday up to weekend, which is Saturday and Sunday, the temperatures will reduce to as low as 2 degrees Celsius. So it means it will be extremely cold. Then you have farmers. And I want you to pay attention to this particular item. You have farmers who apparently have specialized in winter maize. So the extreme cold temperatures have destroyed crops of some of the farmers, not only in Livingston, but we understand Kalomo, a few parts of Choma also that have been affected. But then the funny thing, and I'm saying the funny thing, is that the Zambia Meteorological Department, which is the country's department that is responsible for weather, has been issuing weather updates. Okay? But the question is, hasn't this information reached the farmers? That is another story. But then what we are making to as observations is that this same information that is being shared, is it well packaged? Is it well simplified to a point where farmers can be able to understand? For example, let's say if the weather is presented, is it just presented generally for every person, or that same weather update is also interpreted to the farmers? Okay, if we're having low temperatures, how will it be able to affect crops, for example? So how should farmers be cautioned? Of course, we know that in certain cases, we've had the weather department simplifying the information and also making cautions, especially in times of disasters. We've had them. But in this context where we've had winter maize crops that have been destroyed by frost, it means therefore that there is information gap between the Zambia Meteorological Department as well as the farmers themselves. Is it because the information was not simplified, or is it because maybe the information delayed to reach the farmers? Is it because the country's weather department delayed to issue warnings, for example, to farmers? So all these are some of the issues that really are of concern, and hopefully once we have the access to, because after all, if you have maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 districts that are affected by frost, okay, so frost is basically a condition, but obviously those of you that are well vested in the weather, but in a layman's language, it's just a condition where when the temperatures drop to very low conditions, like for example in like I mentioned in Livingston, it's expected to be between 2 degrees Celsius tomorrow and Sunday. So then what that does is that it does a lot of damage to crops. Of course, we know that apparently some maize by tag are called to be winter maize, but each, I mean, there is a limit to which they can hold also. So if this information is simplified to farmers, if we have 2 degrees Celsius of weather in this season, what does it mean to a farmer? Okay, what should a farmer do? And also, should a farmer receive information a day before that temperature is dropping? At least a week, maybe 2 weeks, if we're able to sort of, uh, tell. And of course, we know that the weather department is well equipped. Sometimes we've seen them sharing, 2 weeks weather update. So it means the farmers also should sort of be able or be in a position to receive this information, and obviously also farmer unions should be able to help these farmers in terms of simplifying this information. This is why we've been waiting for Mr. Runik Maphanza, who is chairperson of the Livingston Union for Farmers, to sort of help us how they've been sharing information to the farmers. So in case you want to contribute, you are free to contribute in the comments. Please give us your points of views with regards to how you see the relations between farming and the access to information, or how farmers can benefit from this piece of legislation. I've also indicated in the description, please, there's a link where you can sign voluntarily, um, the petition demanding for the enactment of the ATI. So this podcast is brought to you by the Ask ATI Initiative under the USAID Open Spaces Zambia project. The USAID Open Spaces Zambia project is funded by USAID and implemented by Internews in partnership with FHI 360. You're watching us on different platforms: Mukuni Village, Alliance for Community Action, Twitter, Facebook, as well as YouTube channel. Also coming live on Michael Zulu Facebook page, plus Chanda Medley Chongo, and many other platforms that you are accessing us. And this evening's episode is the last episode in terms of discussing access to information. And we hope that all these episodes have been so helpful, and you have been helped to sort of understand one or two areas in relations to access to information. But generally, what we are also saying is that having understood access to information, each and every person at least should be able to demand for its enactment to ensure that information then is shared, especially public information. So we are talking about public policy, for example, farmer input support program, where farmers are not given adequate information. Farmers are not given accurate information. Farmers are not given information that is timely. So if information is not timely, it means therefore that farmers will lose out. Just like Eraston Gwangwanzu observes, he says farmers need information as it can help So we apologize for the cut of internet. It's because the internet is not really so good. I mentioned that the weather department has predicted quite very strange weather conditions. It's windy, and then obviously this has also disrupted internet in one or the other. But then we were just saying that farmers, like Eraston has observed, need to be given information so that they can know what crops to plant during the season, especially when there is so much talk about climate change and obviously the need to put up climate resilient crops So we are still waiting for Mr. Mapanza to see if he can be able to join us. But meanwhile, please get in the comment section, give us your contribution. How best do you think, access to information can be beneficial to the farmers, and what kind of information really do farmers need